let's look at the latest amendment. What would you like to highlight, to all of our audience here about the latest amendment?
So that's why I mentioned about data user being data controller. Essentially, it's just to update the name to an international compliant name. In the EU, they use the word controller. Somehow, when we came out with the law, we used the word data user. Controller seems to be confusing, but now they just updated controller. Two is data processor need to comply with the security principle. In the past, the obligation is on the data controller to make sure your data processor comply with the security principle. If, let's say, the data processor causes the breach, in the past, it's the data controller who got the trouble. But now the law has been changed based on previous cases. A lot of times is the data leakage happened because of the data processor causing the data leakage. And a lot of times is the data controller being outside Malaysia. So a lot of, let's say, software development work was being processed or being done in overseas. That caused a lot of these data breaches. So now the law wants to make sure these data processors get into trouble as well if there's a data leakage, especially if they are the one who caused the data leakage. So in the past, if you want to process personal data, so you want to transfer personal data overseas, there's a set of requirements. This requirement in the past is that there's a white list. What are the countries that the government recognized to transfer data? But for 10 years, they did not come up with the white list for unknown reasons. So now they've changed the law to say that if the law is similar to our PDPA, then you can transfer it to places that you want overseas protection. But there are also other provisions, like, for example, or you sign some form of confidentiality obligation that they will take care of data to transfer data. But if there is none, you can always rely on the law that is similar to the PDPA. There are a few places that are similar. EU, Singapore, Hong Kong, essentially the Commonwealth countries similarly would have this kind of provision. And how do you determine whether they are similar to a PDPA? What you do is what we call a transfer impact assessment to determine whether the place has similar laws or not. That is maybe quite difficult, but that is one of the ways you can do it. But the most easiest way is just to get consent from the data subject, the individual, to transfer data overseas. The next one is the expansion of sensitive personal data. Now they included biometric. So your facial recognition data, let's say you go through a system to recognize your face, that is a biometric data. It becomes sensitive personal data, and therefore you will need your explicit consent. Penalty has been increased to 1 million, and then the jail term also has been increased. But so far, nobody has been fined the maximum. And in respect of the fines by the court, there's actually not much, usually 5 digits. No one has gone to the 6 digits yet. I also seen no cases where the person has actually fought the case all the way to the end. Most of the time is they either pay a compound or they just plead guilty and pay a fine. Effective 1st June, you need to appoint a data protection officer. It can be internally, can be external, but essentially that person need to make sure the company complies with the PDPA. That person will need to be quite involved in the business of the company. Then there's a data breach notification. If there's, let's say, more than 1,000 data being leaked, you will need to make sure to notify the commissioner within 72 hours of a data breach. And then there's a right to portability. Right to portability is essentially transfer one data to another. Very clear example is your mobile line. Is to transfer your information from Maxis to Celcom or Celcom to Maxis. So that is the right to portability. In respect of telco, is very applicable to that. So these are basically the new changes in Spodoo.